As Liz awoke, she saw that Steve's body had been added to the pile. She was exhausted. She couldn't scream. She barely had the energy to cry. Lewis's body burned behind her. Rob's body, George's body, and Leo's body lay in front of her, and Sam's body was next to theirs. To her left was the impaled corpse of Carrie, propped up on the halberd which killed her, and Klaus's drowned, lifeless body was propped up against her. Liz was terrified, but also exhausted and numb. She accepted her fate. In the brief calm, she thought back to the movie night, and then to this series of horrible events. As she thought about how each of her friends had died, she realized that each friend had died exactly how they were afraid to go.
Hey guys, in the spirit of the movies we're watching, what would you say is your biggest fear? I'll go first. Mine is failure. I'm terrified of not amounting to anything in life, you know?
Rob died right away, and he was afraid of failure and never amounting to anything.
Anyway, my biggest fear is to suffer a painful death. I try not to think about it, but I want to go peacefully anywhere and without pain, like in my sleep, for example. The idea of suffering, like slowly bleeding out or burning alive, terrifies me.
Lewis was afraid to suffer. When he died, and he listed 2 examples that he feared. And both of them happened to him.
I have trust issues that I've been working on. Still, at this point in my life, my greatest fear is one of my friends betraying me and it costing me my life in the process.
She looked up and saw that George was face down with a large knife wound in his back.
Wait, that means someone betrayed him. But who?
She continued, and Mizu was watching in the darkness. The words of the cultists were echoing in her mind.
Your must be moved, and you must be the last one to die.
She would have to fake her own death. Mizu screamed a blood-curdling scream, and slowed her pulse so that Liz could not feel it. She waited a few moments before throwing herself on top of Sam. She played dead, but to Liz's knowledge, she wasn't pretending. 2 friends remained. One was quietly waiting.
What are you doing? Hey, what are you out?
eyes looked up at what she thought was Mizu's dead body and cried the remainder of her tears, but much weaker this time. She then continued to think about the deaths of her friends, hoping to prepare herself for how she was about to die.
Maybe this realm takes control of people if it needs to. And that would explain the betrayal. Maybe Sam really was the traitor in the George scenario, since she was the one who noticed his body was missing.
Mizu still lay in wait, silently listening and waiting for her time to strike.
So this realm can take control if it needs to, in order to realize its victims' worst fears. My head is spinning. I can't remember what I said. I'm so scared right now that I don't have just one worst fear anymore. I'm afraid of everything.
She took a deep breath and steeled herself before continuing.
I have to remember so I can be ready.
Mine is getting kidnapped. The idea of being taken hostage helplessly terrifies me more than anything.
She looked up at Leo's body and saw that he was tied up with a burlap sack over his head.
Alright, so Leo was kidnapped. But what was Sam afraid of?
She remembered Sam's final words.
I'm not a killer and I'll prove it to you. I'll go find Leo and George.
Her fear was success. She must have died right after she found Leo and George. Like she said she was going to.
She looked at Carrie's impaled body.
I guess I'm afraid of dying in general. The idea of dying and traversing into the great unknown terrifies me.
Klaus's body had leaned up against it.
This got too real. I'm also afraid of death, but more specifically, drowning. It's actually why I stay away from water.
Carrie's fear was death in general, so her death was the realm's choice. And Klaus was afraid of water, which is why he's drenched, and why I heard him drown.
Lastly, she looked at Steve and Mizu's bodies, and saw that Steve's hands were tied behind his back, and a blindfold was over his eyes.
Mine is somewhat similar. I'm afraid of getting stranded somewhere and left to die.
While Mizu's were wide open.
I'm afraid of success. With success comes change. And this all terrifies me.
It looks like Steve was left to wander in the dark, and his fear was to be stranded. And I heard Mizu scream before her corpse fell into the light. So I guess she found her way back and was killed for it, since her fear was success.
Mizu still lay in wait as Liz finally collected her thoughts and remembered what she said during the movie marathon.
This may be a bit of a downer, but I'm afraid of dying alone.
Finally, she understood what was going to happen now.
I'm going to be the last one to die here. No killer, no entity, just myself, all alone.
And with these words, Mizu heard just what she was waiting for. And using her connection to the realm, she extinguished the burning flame by simply a trick of the light should Liz have been looking at Mizu. But Liz was silently sobbing, without tears, as she had shed them all while accepting her fate.
I wish we'd never shared our fears with each other at movie night.
And with that, the light from the flames finally died out, and with it, so too did the remainder of Liz's life essence. Her worst fear had been realized. Liz had died all alone. One friend remained. One friend quietly signaled the cultists in her mind. The traitor was ready to return home. Mizu Hanamichi was ready to die.